So good evening. See if this is on. You think that's on? Are you able to hear me? We're good. Okay. Good evening. I'd just like to thank everyone for coming this evening. I'm Dr. Sherry Great, the superintendent of Westfield Washington Schools, and we're so glad to have each one of you here this evening. We also have the opportunity to live stream our presentation for this evening. I'd also like to thank our school board members who are in the audience this evening. If they might stand. I know I saw Mary Serene and Amy Pichter and Dan Degnan. And then we also have some city elected officials, also county officials with us. I know I saw Representative Shibley with us this evening and Karen Glasser from Congresswoman Brooks' office. And then also one of our county commissioners, Mark Harebrant, is with us. And then I'm so pleased to see Mayor Andy Cook with us this evening. We're so glad that you're here. This evening, I'd like to introduce our panel members that are going to be speaking this evening. We have Todd Bertrand, our Chief of Staff at Westfield City, the City of Westfield. Also, our Director of Student Services, Dr. Chase Stinson. Betsy Montalone, a counselor at Shamrock Springs Elementary School. Also, Chris Baldwin, our Director of Human Resources and School Safety. And then we also have Dr. Montalone, who is our Director of Operations, and then Chief Joel Rush from Westfield Police Department. We're so glad to have you with us this evening. I'd just like to share, after the Noblesville shooting, we really quickly realized that many parents maybe didn't know what we were already doing within our school district in regards to school safety and the measures that we have in place as a school district. And we wanted to be able to, we felt like we needed to maybe do a better job of communicating what those measures might be. And so we realized moving forward with that, we wanted to host a community event. So in June, we hosted a community forum where we had probably around, I know it was over 200, maybe 250 people who attended. And really the purpose of the community forum was to provide an opportunity for the school district to share information about school safety in regards to some of the practices and protocols that were already in place, some of the things that we were already considering moving forward, and then really to give our community the opportunity to ask questions, share their concerns, and even share ideas that they might have in regards to school safety. And so we've spent the last few weeks going through all of that information that was shared. We really appreciated all of the feedback that we had, and we really looked for common themes. And so I think what you'll hear this evening is you'll hear these themes that will continue to be a part of our conversations, and just taking into consideration that, as we have shared before, safety is such a priority, and it's a conversation that's ongoing, and we want to make sure that we're continuing to reinforce that. We also want to reinforce that we will continue to be open to exploring and researching best practices as it relates to school safety. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is really to provide an extensive presentation for you, which will hopefully address some of the common themes or questions that you may have presented back in June. We also want to continue the community conversation about school safety by providing some additional information about enhanced social and emotional learning resources and personnel in the district, refined district safety protocols, and then through our partnership with the Westfield Police Department in the City of Westfield, which we are so blessed and fortunate to have such a great relationship, the expansion of services and resources serving our schools. And then we also just want to reinforce and express to our community that we are committed to maintaining a safe and healthy environment throughout our school district. So as you listen to tonight's presentation, I think you'll quickly understand that our approach to safety is a team approach. There is not a singular component or mechanism that will keep our students safe. It's working together with the individual schools, our local police department, city agencies, parents, and our community as a whole. It's that combination of teamwork which will ensure the safety of students and staff, which is always our #1 priority. So at this time, I would like to introduce to you Chief of Staff Todd Bertrand.
Thank you, Dr. Great, and thank you all for showing up tonight. I'm here actually representing the city administration and my boss, Mayor Cook, and he's here tonight unexpectedly, so it's good to see you. Glad you're back. So yes, as Dr. Great had mentioned, we have, it's important, I think, for you as community members, constituents, to appreciate that your two government units that impact your life perhaps the most directly is your city and your school corporation, that we stand shoulder to shoulder. And as the conversation began to unfold since this past May, Dr. Great was immediate in reaching out to the city and those of us that work every day at the city to really convene this conversation, and it's what's bringing us here tonight, and we'll continue to talk about in the future. And I think it's those two things are important, that we have this open dialogue and such an immediacy to allow us in and have this conversation, because we're here serving you, and there's nothing more important in this community than the public safety aspect, and certainly the safety of our schools. So as you'll hear this evening from Chief Rush, the additional steps that we will implement and sustain as we move forward, I think you'll be pleased with those, and the thoughtfulness that we'll have as an ongoing dialogue between Dr. Great's leadership team and those of us that serve the city. Your elected representatives on the city council, I assure you that their priority is making sure that the resources are allocated not only for school resource officers that will be expanded, but certainly additional law enforcement officers on our streets that serve your neighborhoods. So just from that aspect is my role here tonight, to reaffirm that and be very proud of the fact that we have a strong relationship with our school leadership, our city council, and certainly in the office of the mayor. So thank you, and Dr. Great, or Dr. Stinson.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for being here this evening. I certainly appreciate it, and I certainly appreciated the opportunity Dr. Great had offered me. I think typically when we think about school safety symposiums, we think about locks on the doors, extra resource officers, ALICE training, all the things that we do from a physical standpoint and a people standpoint to provide the most safe environment we can for our students. But when we think about social emotional learning, we think about all the things in the classroom. How do we best develop curriculum, programs, and services, and that social piece throughout the course of the day, and not just a canned program, but again, something that we can implement with our core academic areas to truly create a social emotional learning environment that works for all kids and not just some kids, and thinking about tiered interventions of support and how that works as kind of a first mechanism, and being able to be progressive and not waiting until we have to call the police or there's an accident that occurs. But how are we truly working together as a community, as a society, as the schools, and some of the things that we just talked about, that partnership with mental health, with other vendors in the community that have areas of expertise in social emotional learning, and bringing that to the classroom. And beyond the classroom, obviously there's students sometimes that need even extra services or extra supports. So that whole social emotional learning piece, along with the mental health piece, and how can we do a better job of bringing those services together in the classroom, into the counselor's office, into the principal's office, so that we're able to provide a lot better supports for kids, so that learning is the priority. We still talk about what's the #1 barrier to learning in our classrooms in Westfield, and it's behavior. It's social emotional. If you ask any teacher, probably in any of the 6 elementary schools, what's the #1 barrier? It still remains behaviors in the classroom, whether it's a student, a group of students. That's still certainly something that we're battling on a day-to-day. So we're taking a lot of time in our buildings, and if you see the first bullet point up here, the multi-systems or multi-tiered systems of support, every building now has a MTSS team, which is comprised of and led by the school counselors, teachers, and support staff and administrators alike. And they're beginning that process of building those plans and for every building, and also at the district level, to make sure that we're looking at best practices as it relates to social and emotional learning, so that we can have students coming to school every day that feel good about being at school, that feel safe about being in school, and can react in social situations appropriately. That takes more than just the school piece. That takes more than a teacher in a classroom. It takes lots of opportunity for again, that partnership between home, between our city, and our schools to be practicing that across all areas, to certainly think about what are those best practices we can offer our students. The role of the school counselor, we have redesigned and reevaluated and what that looks like, especially at the elementary level, so that they're able to better serve students from a social emotional need. And not just, again, kids in need, but what does a healthy school and a healthy classroom look like, so that we can certainly model that. We've added counseling staff at the intermediate school and the middle school and the high school this year. Mental health partnerships. We've partnered with Aspire in Fort County. We have therapists in our buildings that are serving students directly in a therapeutic situation. We're also looking at other areas, other vendors in the community that have expertise beyond just therapy, but psychologists and psychiatrists that are willing to come into our school settings and help kids that we see have extreme needs or volatile needs, and putting a plan together for recovery and thinking about what are those best intervention options, those service plans that we can bring to the table for all kids that have those needs in our community and within the school setting. We're certainly seeing that on a day-to-day. We're certainly seeing connectability to that, and we're certainly seeing options that are going to help us in the future. The Devereaux, the DESA, we now have implemented that at the school level, grades K, 2, 4, 6, 8. It's a screener teachers use directed by the school counselors, and it's really a screener to talk about how healthy are we? How healthy is every child? We include the parent in that. We look at the results. It's intervention-based, so it's very prescriptive. It's an assessment that's very quick, but if we're seeing that there's a greater need, again, communicating with the family and the counselor and the teacher, there are deeper dives to that from an assessment standpoint. Again, it's very prescriptive, so it allows for very specific intervention planning for students or even staff that might have special needs that we have to address, or that they want to address, certainly. The bullying reporting, obviously that's been something that's been very much out front. How are we reporting that? How are we defining that? The FERPA piece to that. I know sometimes it's very difficult for parents that come in and are talking to a principal or a counselor and saying, my daughter is being bullied, my son's being bullied, and you don't necessarily get to be connected to the outcome of that. What's the outcome? What happened to the other child? In a lot of cases, it's thinking about ways to help them, not just from a disciplinary standpoint. Because of the FERPA piece, the school legally isn't allowed to do that. So I think that's something that's certainly challenging. I understand that. It makes sense certainly to me, but it's definitely a barrier when your son or daughter you feel like is being mistreated by a peer and the school can't tell you exactly what happened to that other student. We understand that, but we want to make clear that that's something that Westfield schools can't control. So we're doing everything we can right now. I certainly want any kind of a mechanism of feedback. We got a lot of feedback from our meeting at Maple Glen, and we appreciated that. Just thinking about ways from a social emotional learning standpoint, we can bring services to the table for teachers and students alike to really be able to bolster that so that we can provide a better, safe and healthy school environment. I appreciate it. The next guest, Betsy Smith, she's our school counselor at Shamrock Springs. She's going to talk about some of the district initiatives, planning and implementation. And Betsy, you're next. Thank you.
Good evening. So I'd like to take the next few minutes to talk about some of the things that are going on with SEL, social emotional learning, in our district, more specifically, some of the things that we're doing at the elementary level. So the wheel that you see behind you is called CASTLE. CASTLE stands for Collaborative Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. It's a framework, and it's actually become our district's framework for social emotional learning. And so you see the 5 different, we call them core competencies up there. And so that's our guide for the social emotional learning that we deliver. So if we want to dub that down and get a little more specific, I'll get this. There we go. For example, self-awareness, core competency, competency. An example of that would be helping kids identify their emotions. So that's self-awareness. Self-management, core competency. A sub-competency that we'd be working with our kids with might be impulse control or managing stress. Social awareness, core competency. Sub-competency might be helping our children identify the emotions of others and showing empathy, helping them appreciate diversity. Relationship skills. We might be working on maintaining those healthy relationships with our kids, working as a team. And responsible decision making, we'd be working on helping kids identify and solve problems and make responsible decisions. Many great reasons to do SEL. So, at the Tier 1 level, Dr. Stinson was mentioning our multi-systems of support. Tier 1 level is how we address all students. So at the elementary level, that might look like, in a lot of our elementaries, having morning meetings. We sometimes call them community circles. So during our morning meetings, we have obviously those at the beginning of the day, and our kids circle up. It's a great way to begin the day. During the course of the last year, our teachers have done an amazing job with taking hold of this and making it part of the start to the day. We think that it's important to have that morning meeting right off the bat to get off to a good start, sort of like a family that starts the day and ends the day together. That's how we like it to be at school, so that it feels inclusive. They have a voice. They're sitting in the circle, making eye contact and sharing things. Technology's my challenge. So, beginnings do matter. It sets the tone for the day. And when we talk in our morning meetings, we've heard so many favorable comments from our teachers over the course of the year. Things such as, I got to know this class this year better than any class I've ever known. And our students got to know each other better than they've ever gotten to know each other before. So many great things, so many good stories are coming out of this learning. We've found that if kids are connected, if they feel that trust within their group, their classroom community, all of these things make way for fostering better friendships, less bullying. So there's so many great reasons why this is going on. We've also talked about ending the day together. Morning meetings look like usually about 15 to 20 minutes in the morning, and we go directly from announcements into our morning meeting and circle up. Our closing circles are an idea that we're trying to take hold as we progress to next year, and that's just ending the day together. And that might look like the last 5 minutes of the day, circling up after backpacks are packed and just sort of processing, no matter how the day went, leaving on a good note. And that might be something like, what happened today that you liked? How do you think the day went? What are you looking forward to tomorrow? That kind of thing. So part of social emotional learning is teaching kids about the brain. If kids can concretely understand what's going on when they have those emotional bursts, sometimes that helps with both the self-awareness and the self-management piece. For example, we concentrate on two parts of the brain when we talk about how that works with our emotionality and managing ourselves. And we, on more of a primary level, we talk about the prefrontal cortex as our thinking part of the brain. We also call that wise owl. Our amygdala, however, is our feeling part of the brain. We call that our guard dog. And there's so many times when we need guard dog to be on. Guard dog helps keep us safe during those times. But there's a lot of occasions where guard dog is on duty and he doesn't really need to be. And if we can kind of do that self-talk and think of our brain and what's going on and say, guard dog, calm down, Wise Owl has this, so to speak. Just another strategy for kids to self-manage. All right, so another part of SEL learning, this has become a big part actually during the last year and a half, is the mindfulness piece. So at Shamrock, we have our announcements at the beginning of the day, and at the end of the announcements, we have a short mindful practice, usually 60 to 90 seconds, something like that, where Mr. Hedges or Mr. Marvel goes right into that. And this is the beginning of the classroom meeting, so to speak, and our kids are breathing and they're together with their teacher. It might be just a short practice, primary level, that just talks about feeling your breath, being still, being present. And so we go right into the morning meeting after that. Our teachers also have mindful moments throughout the day as needed. For example, maybe coming in from recess when our kids are sort of amped up, it might help facilitate a calming moment for them. So mindfulness has been a big part of SEL learning, and the adults have also felt a lot of benefits from mindfulness because we needed to at times. Okay, so there's a lot of physical benefits from mindfulness, but most of all, it really is a permanent, lifelong strategy for our kids. When you think about it, we don't always have that stress ball with us or our favorite stuffed animal during those times of emotional bursts, so to speak. But we tell the kids, you always have your breath, no matter what. It's there with you, and you can use it as a calming strategy. A lot of our teachers in the classrooms are also creating what we call calming corners, and this is another way that kids can self-manage when they have those times that they're feeling anxiety or anger or sadness or stress. It's a non-punitive way that they can go take a break, go to that calming corner, chill out. That's teaching them how to manage and know when they're ready to come back and get back into the groove of things. So that's been another measure that many of our teachers have taken. A lot of good resources out there for mindfulness, a lot of good free apps. At school, our teachers use a lot of Go Noodle practices, Mind Yeti, Cosmic Kids, a lot of great things out there that we can use, and those apps are free. The adults in our building like the Calm app, and as I said, that's taken hold to become part of some of our staff members' days as well. It personally has benefited them. So, in closing, these are preventative skills that we teach to all kids. We also have opportunities, as Dr. Stinson mentioned, that we need to double down and sometimes work with groups of kids on these things, sometimes individually. That's what we're there for. We are all in this together, and this helps prepare our kids not just to be combined with academic learning, that social emotional piece, not just to be college and career ready, but this is about helping them be life ready. So if there's ever anything that you're concerned about with your child, if they ever feel that they're not safe at school or have something that's getting in the way of their learning, we want them coming in every day happy and eager to start the day. And if that's not happening, we want to know about it. One of the things I love about Westfield is it's a growing city that has that small town feel, and we watch out for each other. So please don't hesitate to contact teacher, administrator, counselors if you ever need help with anything at all. So I'm going to turn it over to our directory, Director of Safety and HR, Chris Baldwin.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Chris Baldwin. I am the Director of Human Resources and Safety for the school district. I'd like to start out just by talking about our district safety committee because I think it's a very special group and a group that's made a lot of changes and advancements in safety throughout our district. In my role as Director of Safety, I oversee all aspects of this safety committee, and it's made up of building assistant principals, school resource officers, school security officers, and also at every meeting we have representatives from the Westfield Police and Fire Departments as well. We meet on a regular basis to discuss and review safety topics such as those we're covering tonight. All of these things that we'll talk about tonight have come up in one of our district safety committee meetings. After every school safety event, if it's Parkland, if it's Noblesville, we meet as a group to review our protocols and see if we can learn from other situations and make improvements. So I'd like to thank the district safety group. Many of them are here this evening just for their work because they're the ones doing the ground level work at the buildings and making sure these initiatives get followed through. So tonight I'd like to take time to review and go more in depth with some of our current and new safety protocols. First of all, drills, training, and safety reviews, communication regarding drills to students and parents, our safe visitor management system, our tips line, see something, say something, also how threats are investigated, and our ALICE process and training plans. First off, I'd like to talk about our safety drills and our training and reviews. So we have a comprehensive drill schedule that includes fire drills, severe weather drills, ALICE lockdown drills, etc. We will be increasing the frequency of our ALICE lockdown drills this school year. Drills occur during normal class time, but we also make sure to do drills during recess, during lunch, during passing periods, because we have to practice those events because it doesn't always happen during normal classroom times. These drills are observed by the Westfield Police Department, Westfield Fire Department members, and they are there to give us feedback and to observe those drills. We have been allowed by the state recently to replace a fire drill with a man-made safety event drill, such as ALICE lockdowns. And we can do that in alternating months, so that's something we will be implementing to take place in place of some of those fire drills. As you can see up here in the middle, we have flow charts that have been developed to list all the steps necessary for all the employees during these safety situations. And then on the right-hand side, you can see an example of a rubric. After each drill, a rubric is completed to score and review the drill and look for areas of improvement. And these debriefing sessions are attended by appropriate members of the police department and the fire department to help us figure out what can we do better the next time. And we have been evaluated by the Department of Education, and this is one area that they have said is a model safety activity that has been shared with other districts around the state. I want to talk about a couple of areas that we'll be concentrating on this school year in terms of drills, training, and reviews. First of all, we're going to be more deliberate in our language during drills, such as the word ALICE. So when we've talked in the past, we've done lockdown drills, but we have not been deliberate with the word ALICE, and it has a distinct meaning that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. We're going to be more deliberate and more obvious during our lockdown drills and other drills as well. We're going to also make it a point to communicate with parents after every drill with details and ask that parents speak with their children about what happened that day. So we'll make sure to give as much information as we can. Understand that we can't say everything. Some information we need to keep private, but talk about what happened during the day and ask for some follow-up and feedback. And we realize we need to do a better job of stating every time we're doing a drill and what we did during those days. So you'll see more of that this school year. I'd next like to talk about our safe visitor management system. And as many of you realize, that information came out this past week. And it's a new visitor and volunteer background check and office check-in system. It's just another layer of security in our larger safety plan that we're talking about this evening. It's been in the works for some time. We had this demo way back in January to implement this school year. And several local school districts around us have been using this for several years and using it kind of in a similar way that we're planning to as well. So this more comprehensive background check will be required for all visitors or volunteers attending lunch with their child, volunteering in a classroom, helping with class parties, et cetera, things like that that go on in the school. Basically all activities that take place beyond the office area. A parent does not need a completed background check to pick up their child, to drop something off in the office. Obviously, you have to be on the list of approved people to pick up or drop off, but you don't have to have that completed background check for those types of activities. If you want to meet with the principal, you'll be checked in, but you don't need to have a comprehensive background check. So what does this new background check do? What's different? Because we've had a limited check in the past. The limited check we used in the past only checked the current county of residence. It was a quick check. We would get the return on that check immediately. This check we're doing now, it takes 3 to 5 days, and it checks the Social Security number trace to confirm identity, a national criminal database search, the National Sex Offender Registry search, and also the county of current residence search. So a much more comprehensive check than we've used before. The new background check is valid for 3 years. So one important note that I wanted to make is even though the background check is a one-time check that'll give us information about the individual, every single time a person checks in, they are checked real-time against the National Sex Offender Registry. That's something we did not have in place before. If something shows up on the background check, the information is reviewed by the WWS administration to determine the person's access to the building. So every check is reviewed and checked for approval. So when you complete the background check, some of you I'm sure already have, you'll get an email stating the check has been approved, and you'll get a barcode badge attached. So I went through the process. I have, if some of you have before or already done it, I've got a safe visitor badge, which is just a barcode. It's just a barcode that I've saved. It's in the app. There's an app, Safe Visitor. If you want to check that out right now on your phones, check it out. You can't do anything unless you've done the background check yet, because there'll be a number that you can put in there for that to come up. But you'll get an email. You can save the email on your phone. You can print off the barcode and just keep it with you. If you, for some reason, come into school and you forgot your barcode or don't have it, we can look you up by name. We'll check your ID. Your background check will be in the system. So many different ways that we can check that background check. If you're a volunteer to this school, you'll be with children. You must have an approved background check, as we stated. So you'll enter, I'll go through the process as we start the school year. You'll enter the office and state why you're visiting. So you would say, I'm here to volunteer in Mrs. Baldwin's kindergarten classroom to help in the classroom. So the secretary is going to ask you to scan your Safe Visitor badge. The first time you visit, you will get your picture taken. After you get it taken the one time, it's automatically saved. It will show up in your app. Your picture's been taken. So in further times you visit the school, you won't have to have the picture taken again. You'll get a visitor sticker. The visitor stickers have a little stop sign that's covered, and after so many hours, that stop sign appears that shows that you're no longer allowed to be, or they'll question you being in the building, but really the main thing is you can't use that visitor badge again the next day or at a later time. You'll get a new visitor badge every time you come in. If you're at school just to meet with a principal or a counselor, you'll not need an approved background check since you're not going past the office. You'll still be checked in using your driver's license, and that screens against the National Sex Offender Registry every single time. So to go beyond the office, you need that background check. If you're just visiting the office with a principal or things like that, you just use your license to check in. Obviously, we have events that go on at the elementary school that are large in nature, and we will have, and to make sure that special supervision procedures will be in place during those large school programs or special events. It may not necessarily be a check-in with a safe visitor for those. I just ask you to go to the website. It's all there, has all the information, and just make sure you do that in the next few weeks so you're prepared for the beginning of the school year. I can just say now we just appreciate your patience as we're learning this new system. If you can get in during Ice Cream Social or back to school, we're going to have stations set up that your picture can get taken then, and you're good to go when you come in the first few days. But I just ask that you have patience as our secretaries and buildings are getting used to this new process as well. Next, I'd like to talk about our TIPS reporting, See Something, Say Something. So this is our online system that we can use to report safety or security situations, and it can be found on our district website and through the Westfield Washington Schools app. If you haven't done so already, take out your phones right now and download the Westfield Washington Schools app. If you haven't done that, take the phones out, download it. The tips link is in that app. So make sure you do that. I want to emphasize that it's not meant to replace contacting the school administration. We still would love for you to reach out to the administration if you have a concern, whether it's safety or any other situations. We recommend contacting administration so they can ask more questions and get more in-depth information to help with the investigation. The tips does allow for anonymous reporting, especially if you're concerned about your name being involved, you don't want to be connected to it, and that's perfectly fine. Understand that with that anonymous answer or system, we may not be able to follow up appropriately, but that is an option through tips to do that. If it's an immediate emergency, we just ask that you call 911 or call dispatch for the police department because this reporting and tips may not be received until the next morning if it's outside of school hours. So all reported safety concerns, whether through tips, any other ways that it's reported, are investigated thoroughly. So every building has a threat assessment team, and that includes administration and the police department. It could be our SROs, it could be reaching out to the police department. And they help investigate all threats to see if they're valid. We do get things that are sent through tips that are not true. And we look into I can't say it enough, that every single thing that goes through tips is investigated thoroughly to make sure of the validity. Nothing is ignored because we can't do that. Because if it's that one time that it is something, we can't just skip by that. So everything is investigated thoroughly. The Westfield Police Department, again, helps us by thoroughly investigating, including possibly going to the person's house, talking to neighbors, talking to the parents, talking to the individual. And I know this because being involved in the process, they are very thorough and then getting back with us and telling us, okay, there's no threat, it's not a valid threat, and helping us through the situation. And their guidance and our relationship with them is very important when it comes to these situations. And I want to emphasize again, all tips information is investigated thoroughly by our administration and the police department. We know that the best detectors are human detectors. I said that at our past meeting. So it could be that the best tips information comes from our students. They know what's going on in the buildings. So going forward, and this is as a result of feedback from our previous meeting, we're going to make sure that all students in the upper grades are aware of this reporting tool. Secondly, we're going to continue to look at, are there better systems that are out there that possibly have a texting option to it or some other means to communicate? We all know that students and everybody in general, texting is the way to communicate or way people are communicating, and trying to find an option that allows that texting. So those are things that we're going to look for, really push it to our students and our community to use tips, and also to look at better systems in the future. Next, I'd like to talk about our ALICE process. So we've been using the ALICE process for the past 5 years. And ALICE is a process that gives teachers and students options during active shooter situations. The main options for teachers and students include lockdown, evacuate, counter. When I was teaching years ago, the only option I had as a teacher in these type of situations was to close my door, take my students to the corner of the room and turn off the lights and just sit. And that was the only option. With learning from Virginia Tech and other type of situations, ALICE has come about where the majority of school districts are now using, and all of them in Hamilton County use the ALICE procedures. So teachers and students can now decide to lock down in their classrooms and barricade the door with classroom desks, chairs, anything that they have in their room that would be there. We know that a locked door is the #1 deterrent, but just in case and have some backup, that barricading is also an option. If an active shooter does enter the classroom, the teacher and students can counter by throwing objects at the intruder or moving quickly around the classroom, doing several things as opposed to just sitting in the corner. If information is available that an active shooter is far enough away from the classroom or from the teacher and students, they have the option now to evacuate. We know the safest place to be is outside of the building. Whereas that wasn't even an option before, it is now an option for them to make that decision to do that. And after they leave, they go to some predetermined rallying sites that'll be communicated with the students. So over the summer already, we've trained over 100 of our employees in the ALICE techniques. And during the first few weeks of the school year, all WWS employees will be trained in the ALICE techniques. So as I stated earlier, we'll be doing more frequent ALICE lockdown drills and practices in our buildings. And we'll be deliberate in our use of the word ALICE. So if you ask your son or daughter what ALICE is, they should know what ALICE is. And that means kindergarten through high school. Obviously, the conversations we have with K through 4, K through 6 students will be different than what we do at the 7 through 12 buildings. 7 through 12 students can take more ownership in the process. K through 6 will have different types of conversations, but we will be deliberate in those practices and making sure they understand what to do. The language will be different at those levels. And unfortunately, the sign of the times, this is training that is valuable in real life situations. It can be used in other safety situations out in public if they occur. So again, thanks for being here this evening and partnering with us in the safety initiatives. We will continue to look at ways to inform and acquire feedback regarding our safety protocols. Some of those ideas include, and most likely will include, a community and parent safety group that meets on a regular basis to get information, to acquire feedback. And that's something that we're looking at, and we'll have more information regarding those plans at a later time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Joseph Montalone, our Director of Operations.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, and glad to see so many of you here tonight. I am going to be talking about, I'm going to have to turn my head around here just a little bit, but the construction aspect and the building security and safety of all of our buildings. This building opened in 1997, and if you can think back to when you went to school, the adults in the room, I think openness was every bit as important as what possibly building safety was, if not potentially even more. Pre-Columbine, post, Sandy Hook, and to the point where we are today, building safety and security looks and has to be very different than what it was many, many years ago. And all of the people that are speaking to you tonight, I want to make sure that you understand that none of them are talking or getting information in a silo. We are all working together. I can't thank the city for their commitment in working with us, Chief and Todd and the mayor, in regards to building security. I can't thank CSO, our architect firm, who, along with the Skillman Corporation, is working under the industry standards of safety and secure buildings, along with the Allegiance Corporation, has really helped us dramatically in the last probably year, but most importantly in the last 6 weeks in regards to building audits and security audits and inventories in our buildings. Westfield Washington Schools has invested to this point $900,000 on the fortification, if you will, of our buildings. We have in our building referendum right now, we have construction that's already began with our middle school and intermediate building, along with the high school that will begin that additional construction approximately in about 3 months. And in doing so, and looking at the audits, we've come up with a menu of approximately 8 different sequencing steps that we can go through at trying to fortify our buildings to keep the bad people out of them. Some of them have to do with potentially having an electronic system that goes around every single door of like this building, and if any of those doors would become ajar, it would notify the office and security folks, and the cameras would go on to those areas and we could react to them immediately. Another aspect that we are working on and that will come to fruition is the zoning of our buildings. And if you look at the K4 buildings, excluding Shamrock Springs, albeit it's a little bit different animal than the other 5 buildings, if you have an after-school activity, and if it's in the cafeteria or if it's in the gymnasium where we have WYSI that is a standard bearer for us almost every single evening and weekend. They are not allowed into the building until 6:15. Our BAC, our last child, would leave at 6 o'clock. We would lock the areas that would go into the building along with the cafeteria and the multi-purpose room, and the only area that they could go to would be the gymnasium. That is zoning out the building. The high school is extremely large, and when it was built years ago, it wasn't necessarily to zone activities into specific areas, and that's what we're getting ready to do. So if we would be here in the auditorium, there would be gates out to where none of us would be allowed to go anywhere else into the building. If you're in the MPIF or the gymnasium, we would be able to lock down different segments of the building. As a parent, when I used to go watch my son play basketball in the MPIF, in between games, I would just take a walk. And I would never use my key, but I could walk throughout the entire building. Now, I want to think that I was getting my steps in, but I'm not sure that was necessarily the case. But that won't be allowed anymore, and it won't happen anymore. So through this renovation process, it's allowed us the opportunity for the last year, again, working with our architect and with the Skillman Corporation, to make sure that we're at industry standard in regards to safety. This has also obviously allowed us the opportunity to look at all of our buildings. So we're going back and looking at the security of each one of our elementary buildings. Shamrock Springs does not have an ability to necessarily zone grade levels out. And some of the doors are on backwards, to be honest with you. The push bar's on the wrong side. So we're taking inventory of every one of those issues, and we are putting them, like I said, into a menu. And in the next 2 weeks, we'll be trying to come up with what that plan looks like, have the scope and sequence. And what I want to make sure that you understand also is this isn't the second event that we've had symposium, and this is it after this. We look to at this point have quarterly symposiums for you, where we have other actors in this process come and speak to you, and to gain your thought, your concerns, your insight, and also let you know where we're at. Also, we'll be communicating with you as we go forward what things will look like at the beginning of school. There'll be differences. What they'll look like by Labor Day, fall break, Christmas break. And so we want to inform you as much as possible on what we've been doing during this, the construction and the schematic design phases. Modification of our entry points. This is a very big area for us. Again, when I talked earlier, I said that one of the most important things about a school building back years ago was that openness. We wanted everybody to come in and feel a part of that community school. We still want that, and we will have that, but it will look different when you enter the buildings. We will be moving some of our A phones around to make sure that we can get a full view of the human that's coming into the building. We want to make sure that in those areas, I'm going to jump one here, but in the glazing of the glass, in those areas where you're entering the building, that the glass will be glazed. In other words, if someone would try to penetrate that with a weapon, that it would take minutes on minutes to be able to succeed in that mission, which would allow us to zone down the building and then get our people and chief's people to that area as soon as possible. Also, in those zoned areas, if we were to have any issues, a door is ajar, we would have an electric device that would tell us exactly where that opening is. A camera would be turned on to that specific area, and also our police department will have that viewing on their computers in their cars or in the building, along with the folks in the office. So we'll be able to isolate it down as quick as humanly possible. Safety during construction. Uh, Everyone that is on site at any of our buildings has had a background check, and they have a large sticker on the side of their helmet that declares them to be eligible to be in the work zone area. The construction manager for each one of the building sites is monitoring that constantly. It is important to make sure that we have, if the steps that Chris is leading in regards to safe visitor, doesn't matter if we've got people in the construction zone and we're not sure who they are or what they're doing here, and we will do everything we can to make sure that we understand the appropriate people are in and those that aren't will not be. Some questions that came up a few weeks ago, which was a very good one. What about our vendors that are coming in that are dropping off food and other supplies to our building? A lot of those are taken care of before 7 a.m. And at each one of, like in the cafeteria, I can just think of at Maple Glen right now, in the rear of the cafeteria where food would be dropped off, there's a buzzer system that is buzzed. There's a window, a small window, viewer window on the door, and they know who the people are that are bringing food into the building. But we're going to have to go another step above that. And so we're working on that right now just to make sure that there's conversation between the people that are bringing in the food supplies and the people that are inside. We don't want our Sodexo folks, our custodians, and our cooks and people in the cafeteria to be in any danger whatsoever. And we also want them to have the information that they need to know if they can allow these people in or not. So we'll be working with Sodexo in regards to that this summer. Use of facilities after hours. This is kind of a tough one because some of our folks, and I understand, want us to shut down the building after school hours, or potentially provide security in the building during those hours. And we have to determine what it is that we're looking to accomplish. And what we're trying to do is make our school as safe as it humanly possibly can during the day when our students are here. And once our students are gone and we have activities from outside groups and inside groups that are here, we want to be able to help train them to understand what particular drills they would need to take in regards to if there was an incident in the building, how to evacuate, and how we still zone the building to keep it neutralized into a specific area. But that's a difficult one. We are a community facility, and after hours, like we're in here right now, this is where we have parent symposiums. This is where we have Christmas programs, WISI basketball, and so at this particular point, our schools will be open, but we will zone them out to keep people out of the rest of our buildings and hope that our folks that are monitoring, managing, and supervising those environments are doing their due diligence. So thank you very much. Right now I would like to welcome up Chief Joel Rush, the Chief of the Westfield Police Department. Chief.
Good evening. Mayor, how are you? He snuck a slide in on me. We work better when we work together. School safety is everyone's responsibility. You've heard the phrase, it takes a village. It's about partnership. Heard it from Chief Bertrand, you heard it from Dr. Great, and you'll continue to hear it. It's about partnerships. Building strong relationships. Open communication between the police, teachers, students, counselors, and parents. It's everyone here. It's why we're here. See something, say something. It's a common phrase now. Historically, in each of these attacks that have been happening across the nation, they have one thing in common. The attacker has raised red flags prior to the attack. Whether it was on social media as a post, whether they've talked to a friend, and even cases where they've had multiple police reports. There were signs and indications that something was going to happen. We must do a better job communicating. But it takes all of us. We work better when we work together. Police substations. We have to change the way that we police the schools. I have 50 officers. I will have 52 soon. School safety is a priority for each and every one of them. We have to change the way we do business. We have to make it a point to be in the schools more often. The police substation is one of the ways we're going to do that. When an officer's got downtime, when an officer is doing a report, they can do the report in the school instead of the police department. We also have, in Westfield, we have 4 police beats or districts. It is the responsibility of the officer assigned to the school in their district to make sure the school is safe. The logo on the door is a symbol of our partnership. The city, the police, the schools. Everybody loves a parrot, right? School resource officers. At Westfield, an SRO is a little bit more than just an armed guard. Truly, the word resource is there for a reason. It's a resource there for teachers, for the counselors, and for the students. They themselves are teachers, they're counselors, but they're also law enforcement officers. They play a vital role in training teachers and students on how to respond when an incident occurs. A couple things to understand about our SROs. We select our SROs from our existing team of officers. So they're seasoned officers. They're not a new officer. They're someone that has the skills necessary to do the job. And we look for the officers that'll be the right fit for the school. The other thing that's important to understand is that it takes about 6 to 8 months to backfill the position once we move an officer from the road to an SRO position. We currently have 2 SROs. They're right here, and one's actually in the back, Kim Daniels and Tyler Doherty, the guy that's under the parrot. It's our plan for this coming school year to add a 3rd SRO. At the mid-year, about January, we'll add our 4th. Then the beginning of next year, we'll add our 5th. And that makes me happy as the police chief. I feel pretty comfortable with that number. Been working for quite a while trying to get the 3rd, and now we're going to get 5, so I'm pretty pleased with that. Explosive or weapon detection canine. This is actually an idea brought up from our first meeting in June by one of our citizens there. We will be deploying an explosive detection canine to be a partner with one of our SROs. The dog will be assigned to the schools, be there on a daily basis. It'll be there to greet the students in the morning, and will stay there the remaining of the day. It's important to actually say, too, this is actually a bite dog here. We will not put a bite dog in the school, just so you know. Security audits. This goes hand in hand with what Chris Baldwin was talking about. These are going to be conducted both by our SROs and by members of our special service unit. They'll be scheduled on both a routine basis and also a random basis. We will be testing protocols, emergency plans. We will test the access and visitors controls, conduct system checks on alarms, cameras, communication systems. We'll check the doors and windows on a daily basis. We'll monitor parking, we'll monitor traffic, lighting and signage, and that's just to name a few things that'll be on the checklist. As Joe indicated, we'll also have the ability or have in-car camera feeds from the patrol car in our computers. Will be able to get a direct feed from all the cameras within the schools, a live feed. Gives us the ability to be more in one place at one time. Also gives us the ability, if something does occur, to be able to see where that's at. Kind of a hot topic, metal detectors. At this time, it's not feasible to install stationary or fixed metal detectors. There's just too many issues that we had to fight through. The number of entrances involved, the amount of personnel it would take to actually monitor them, the delay of the time it takes for the students to actually enter the school. However, we are going to take advantage of the governor's handheld metal detector program. Dr. Great has already applied for one for every 250 students. We'll be moving forward, researching best practices in regards to how to best utilize them. And it's my opinion that if it's done properly, it can create the same deterrence as a fixed metal detector. Like everyone else here, I want to thank you for all being here. Several of, like I said before, some of your ideas were and have been implemented. I look forward to the partnership, keeping our schools safe. And remember, we work better when we work together. Thank you.
So you've heard a lot of information this evening. So I hope what you will be able to walk away with this evening is really that our approach to school safety is quite comprehensive. It will continue to be an ongoing conversation. We'll continue to have those conversations with our parents and with our community. I'd like to thank our panelists that were with us this evening. I wanted to make sure that I just re-emphasize some of the things that we heard this evening just about our safety protocols, our facilities, the partnership with our police department, some of the enhancements that we will have when it comes to addressing the mental health needs of our students in our social emotional learning framework. Actually, the addition of a coordinator for social emotional learning to lead that within the district. We are also very excited about an opportunity this fall to host our first ever Parent University on August 1st. There will be many, I believe there are about 20 different sessions. Many of these topics were really based on feedback from parents, so I hope that if you're able to come, you will come and enjoy the sessions. We have morning sessions, evening sessions, some of those which are around safety. And so there's another opportunity for you to become involved. We'll continue these conversations and again, provide a series of Parent University sessions throughout the school year just to build upon the ongoing conversations. So I know that we have discussed a lot of information this evening, and so I want to make sure that you also have contact information. We'd like to give you the opportunity, at any time. Please know that our doors are open. We're willing to take phone calls, emails. We'll meet with you. We really do want to hear your concerns. We understand that there's a lot on the to-do list. And we want to make sure that we're creating the best timeline for implementation and understanding that we're really being responsible with our resources as we allocate those and as we implement new safety protocols and just enhancements to our facilities. Those of us that have been involved this evening will stay around after this evening's meeting. So if you'd like to have further conversation, we would be happy to have that. Thank you again for your time this evening, and I hope that you will enjoy the remainder of your summer, and we will see everyone on August 7th. Have a great evening.